I would like to start off with a trigger warning because I find them to be incredibly important. Over the course of this presentation, I will be talking about personal struggles with mental illness, which will venture into topics including anxiety, depression, and suicide. If you feel uncomfortable at any point throughout this talk, it is both welcomed and encouraged that you leave the room to get some space. Take care of yourself. My name is Dianna Paige. I'm 19 years old, and I am depressed. And that is okay. Yes, you heard me correctly. Just as a diabetic has to deal with managing blood sugar levels and sugar intake, I have to deal with my depressive symptoms. And that's not just feeling extra sad when things go wrong. In fact, it's feeling sad for no reason at all. It's having some days where it's incredibly difficult to get out of bed because I don't see a reason to. Or because I was up all night the night before thinking about this thing that I should have done, but I didn't because I was too tired, because I am so tired all the time. Or that thing that I could have done, but I didn't because I felt no motivation to do it. Or that third cookie that I shouldn't have eaten because that's another 120 calories, another 12 minutes on the elliptical, and I just don't have time to fit that into my color-coded schedule. Or how Maddie never texted me back, and I probably shouldn't text her again because she'll think I'm annoying and she probably hates me, and I don't know why she wouldn't because most of the time I hate me too. But that's just my depression. I am not my depression, but it is a part of me, and it has been for the last 9 years, nearly half of my lifetime. It is my illness, and it's as real and painful as any physical illness. The brain is an organ just like anything else. If you leave anxiety or depression without treatment, just like if you leave any physical disorder like cholesterol or diabetes, it doesn't just go away on its own. And just as people die as a result of untreated physical illnesses, people also die as a result of untreated mental illnesses. Suicide happens when pain exceeds the ability to cope. People don't kill themselves. Their illness kills them. And that's difficult to wrap your head around. People are victims of suicide. The suicide is what kills them. The illness is what kills them. And these deaths happen more often than many people recognize. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among teenagers, and the second among college students. But it shouldn't take a single death, let alone the 40,000 that happen each year in the United States alone, to say that this is important. We as human beings are built with minds that are constantly judging, and that's okay, it's natural. But let me put a question on the table. How many negative slang terms can you think of that are associated with people with mental illnesses? Crazy, insane, weird, freak, violent, psycho, the list goes on. Now, how many negative slang terms can you think of that are associated with people with cancer? There are none. But both of these are illnesses. So why is it if you suffer an illness of the mind, you're thought to be irrational, but if you suffer an illness of the body, you're honorable, courageous, and strong? Mental illnesses are the only illnesses in which we blame the person suffering for their pain, and this won't change unless we talk about it. And we can't be afraid or ashamed to talk about this because 1 in 5 people suffer from a mental illness. Mental illnesses are as common as brown eyes or silver cars, and they're everywhere, not just in typically assumed high-risk families and neighborhoods. I grew up in Fairport, New York. Population, 5,300. The small suburb of Rochester I call home is primarily filled with white middle-class families, therefore making Fairport High School a population of 1,500 primarily white middle-class students. With impressively high graduation rates, a great deal of student involvement in sports and extracurriculars, and award-winning success in academics, one would never walk down the halls of Fairport High School and think, there are struggling students in this environment. But what society needs to recognize is that teens are struggling everywhere, even in the most unexpected communities. I learned this firsthand when I created and led a school-wide student-run mental health program titled True Colors in my senior year of high school with the assistance of my friend Matt Kemp. The True Colors Assembly was comprised of 2 parts, the red line activity, and if you really knew me cards. The red line activity involves students crossing a line when an announced statement applied to them. For example, cross the line if your parents are divorced. But we took these announced statements past the typical comfort zone enforced in schools, bringing up topics ranging from self-harm to suicide. Students were able to see the physical and emotional struggles of their peers during this activity, as well as recognize that they weren't alone in their own personal situations. The second activity, if you really knew me, was the portion of the assembly I often called my baby. Each student was given a small card and asked to write down something that no one knew about them. The cards were written anonymously to ensure that students felt no restrictions regarding what they could write about. In my explanation and prompt to the activity, I said something I could have written on a card. If you really knew me, you would know I struggle with anxiety and body image issues in an attempt to lessen the chances of them taking it as a joke. These are high schoolers, after all. I was not hoping nor expecting the majority of cards to contain secrets of pain, struggle, and mental illness, but that is exactly what we received. These students from middle-class suburban neighborhoods were writing about struggles with anxiety, depression, suicide, physical and emotional abuse, eating disorders, and many other horrifying and painful experiences. Why is it acceptable to miss class if you're in the health center or nurse's office, but not the counseling center? Why is looking out for your physical health encouraged, but your mental health overlooked? When I was in high school, you could go down to the nurse's office at any point throughout the day, regardless of whether or not you had class. You can lie on a cot in the corner of the room for as long as your heart desired if you had a stomach ache or a headache, but if you wanted to talk to a counselor, it had to be by appointment, and only if you didn't have class. Like, okay, I'll simply reschedule my panic attack from 3rd period to 6th period. No issue there. How do we fix this broken mental health system? I have some tips for adults looking to help teens and teens looking to help themselves. Adults, it starts with normalizing mental illness, recognizing that it exists and how prevalent it truly is. A wide variety of professions, including teaching, requires some form of CPR training, which is important, don't get me wrong. But how many professions require training in mental health literacy? 1 in 5 people actively struggle with a mental illness. How often do you have to help someone who can't breathe? Educate yourself, even if your job doesn't require you to. Trigger warnings. I gave one at the beginning of this talk. It took what? 30 seconds? 30 seconds to ensure that your audience knows what potentially high-risk material will be discussed and knows that you care about their personal well-being. Somehow, it has become controversial to take steps to keep your audience from having potentially tragic flashbacks in the middle of a lecture, but that is another discussion to be had. It's 30 seconds. Take the time. Speaking as a teen, I know how apprehensive we can be towards what adults have to say to us, especially if we disagree. When it comes to mental health, don't act like you know everything. Maybe you've read every book available at your public library to help you better understand your son's depression, but that does not make you a trained psychologist. If a teen comes to you looking for support, that's exactly what they want, support, not all the answers. So listen, present yourself as someone that teens can talk to. Establish that you are trustworthy and that your door is always open. Announce this, make it known, and follow through. Sometimes a listening ear is all they need, and sometimes listening's not enough, and the steps taken post-listening are critical. While they may come off as suggestions or trying to help, pushing a struggling teen to go to the counseling center or talk to their parents or go to inpatient or outpatient services may come off as incredibly threatening. I know these resources are supposed to be helpful, but getting a struggling teen or person of any age to get help is the most difficult step in the healing process. So be patient. If a teen is opening up to you about their deepest and most personal struggles, chances are they don't want to rush into handling it all head on. Obviously, there are emergency situations in which patience is not an option, but you have to recognize the signs. Does this teen need help here and now in this moment, or can it wait? This all goes back to the importance of education, which is the first step in the entire process. Teens, if you are actively struggling with a mental illness right now in this moment, I want you to really look at me. I am here. I am breathing. I am struggling. And I understand. You may not be okay right now, but you will be. Recognize the importance of self-care. I've always taken issue with the negative connotation associated with selfishness. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself first. Learn about the coping mechanisms that work for you. Maybe it's exercise, yoga, drawing, playing an instrument, watching a horrible romantic comedy. Do whatever you need to do to feel safe, comfortable, and content with being alive. Sometimes coping mechanisms don't work, and that is okay. That is when it's important to recognize when you can't handle things on your own anymore. And while your best friend may love and support you, that doesn't mean that they can treat your mental illness. Even if it doesn't seem like it, there are resources out there that are compassionate and understanding that you can reach out to. Learn about the resources you have in your area. Maybe it's your counseling center or a helpline. Reach out to them. It can only help. We all have to work together to legitimize the feelings of today's youth. We need to talk about this, or nothing will change. I am standing in front of you today because I am tired. I am tired of living in a society where if your arm is broken, you get a cast, but if your brain is broken, you get outcast. Over the course of this talk, 20 people around the world have died by suicide. With proper treatment and support systems in place, every one of those deaths could have been prevented. It is the personal responsibility of every human being to help take a stand and help raise awareness for mental health. It's time to end stigma, start support, and save lives. Thank you.